Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? This is Attorney Odunlami, immigration attorney from the Odunlami Law Firm. Our physical office is in New Jersey, but we represent clients in all 50 states. My nose is a little tickly. But today I have a couple of immigration stories, success stories I want to talk about because I want to bring these stories to give you guys hope, to let you know that regardless of how hard the journey is, most times there's a destination and it's a good one. So when you guys come on, please let me know where you're coming or signing in from. Say hello. And I'm kind of freewheeling today, so when I'm done, you can ask questions. I don't really have a topic prepared. But if you want any topic, you can put a comment and I will talk about that in another live. So, guys, my purpose in doing this live is to educate. So, of course, I don't represent you guys as your attorney, so I don't know your cases. So sometimes when you ask questions, I can't really give you definitive answers because we really have to ask a lot of questions to be able to figure out how the law applies with regards to your case. So, but the important thing is that there's a lot of information out there, wrong information, and by listening to this lives, I'm hoping that you don't fall prey to people who are giving you wrong information to take advantage of you, right? And this information is everywhere. In fact, on some of my posts or some of my reels, I have people who are right there giving wrong advice to other people. And when I notice it, I come in and I tell them, please don't give wrong advice, on my page. So let's get into it. I am so excited for two of my clients. These are two recent green card approvals. So I'm going to talk about them with you. And I hope that if these stories resonate with you, that gives you comfort, it gives you hope. So client number one came to us, I think it was last year. His daughter was 21 years old, and she's a U.S. citizen, and she was supposed to file for him. Now, the case was a very complicated case because for his daughter to be able to file for him, he had to show that he came in and was inspected and admitted. And what that means is that he came in and he came in with a visa, right? Or if he was a part of a visa waiver program, he came in with that. But the problem with this client was that he lost his passport. So he didn't have the stamp. And this was a long time ago. This was almost 30 years ago. So there was no way to get any information to prove that he came in. He had nothing. And so he had gone to several attorneys and, they weren't able to, couldn't assist him. And we said, we would try because we can do our best. So we started trying to look for ways to show that he had come into the United States, that he had been inspected and admitted, so that his daughter could file for him and so that he could adjust his status in the United States without having to leave. Because this is what the issue was. His daughter is a U.S. citizen, but if he can't prove that he was inspected and admitted, he would have to file a waiver and he would have to leave the country and go and consular process from outside. He would have to get the waiver approved. But unfortunately, he has no qualifying relative because his daughter is not a qualifying relative for a waiver. So we were able to prove that he was actually inspected by the funniest thing, a little serviette paper, the type that they give you on the airline. And we did a lot of back and forth trying to get information and then we finally were able to respond to USCIS because they sent us a request for evidence, giving them all this information and basically told them, we have all this information. You must be able to find this man. And luckily for us, that worked. So he got his green card, and would you believe for the past 20, this is he hasn't left the United States for 29, almost 30 years. So during this process, his parents died. He couldn't leave. He couldn't go back. And so it was a very tearful celebration because now he gets to travel back to his country. He gets to see his family that he hasn't seen in 30 years. And unfortunately, his parents have passed away. But it took him 30 years to get his green card, 29, almost 30 years to get his green card. And so that should tell you that just hang in there. You know, sometimes the going is tough, but as they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Just hang in there. The two important things are, don't fall prey to people who are trying to get you to do the wrong thing, to break immigration laws by sending fake documents and all that, because it complicates the case. And number two, get an experienced lawyer who's willing to work with you and help you and think outside the box, because to get that proof that he had been inspected and admitted, we really had to think outside the box. So the second case was a VAWA case. This VAWA case had me all in my feelings for the past couple of years, because it's taken about 2 years for the VAWA case to be approved. We recently got an approval. It was such a horrible case of abuse. We had an abuser who was filing false reports with the police against our client. And so, you know, VAWA requires that you prove that you're a person of good moral character. So if you're that person who you have an abuser who is using his, trying to file false reports so that they can disqualify you from any petition, then that's you want to know that it's not, you can still file a VAWA case showing that this was an abuse of the legal system, right? And our client were able to show that. Our client was able to get her green card. And it was such a horrible, this was, like I said, it wasn't a case where we had a police report. In fact, the police report we had was against our client, right? Trying to claim that she was an abuser when she was not, right? We had no, she had, there was no physical abuse, but there was emotional abuse. There was a lot of what do you call it, embarrassing her in public, talking down to her, taking her to court, back and forth, back and forth. It was horrendous because, number one, her English wasn't that great. And so, well, at that time, and so it was hard for her to understand the legal process, to, adjudicate for herself. It was just hard because she didn't understand the system. She had just come into the United States, and there she had this very vicious person who had lived here in the United States and was able to use the system to abuse her. So that is abuse, using the system, filing false reports, dragging her to court up and down. Luckily, all the cases were dismissed and the VAWA case was approved. And so it takes courage. I got to tell you guys, it takes courage, because a lot of immigrants do not want to get involved with the police. They don't want to have anything to do with it. I've had clients who, when, the threat of calling the police is enough to make them, they run out of the house. They just think that, calling the police is the worst thing that could ever happen to them. Listen, you can stand up for yourself. It takes courage. The police is not there, at least not anymore, not since this administration. The police is not there to look for a way to deport you. And you have rights, even as an immigrant, right? If somebody is being abusive towards you or they're filing false reports against you, you should be able to, if you can, get an attorney to represent you in that proceeding, or you should be able to advocate for yourself and explain that this is not what happened. This is what happened. And so this case was so it was just a great victory because it was like David and Goliath. You know, you see somebody who didn't understand anything that was going on in the United States because she didn't speak the language as well. And you have somebody who understands the system, who understands that when you call the police, you should mark up yourself, scratch up yourself so that you can say that you were the victim. I'm telling you, this person did so many horrible things to my client, you know, trying to frame her. But none of it was successful. Today, my client got her green card on her own without his assistance. He actually also withdrew his petition from USCIS, withdrew his petition and contacted USCIS to claim that it was not a real relationship and a whole lot of things. But guess what? We were more than up to the task. And with the help of our client, we're able to show us a real marriage, a bona fide marriage. It was undisputable that it was a real marriage. And we're able to also show that the abuser was actually the US citizen. So if this is you, or you know somebody who's going through this, don't give up hope. Get a great lawyer and let them fight for you. All right? Because that's what lawyers do. We fight for people who are being abused. We fight for people who are being taken advantage of. And so if you're married to a US citizen, or you have a child who is 21 and is a US citizen, or you were a child under the age of 21 of a US citizen and you're being abused, don't be afraid to step out. The first step is to reach out to an attorney so that they can qualify your case and see if you qualify to file a VAWA petition. And so another thing I want to tell people is for those who are not married to US citizens, because for you to be able to file under VAWA, you have to have an immediate relative who is a US citizen. And for some people, that is not available to them. But if you're being abused, and it's, you know, depending on the type of abuse it is, if it falls under a qualifying crime, don't be afraid to call the police and file a report. There's no reason for you to be in fear of your life. This is a country of law and order. If something bad is happening to you, somebody's treating you badly, and you're in fear of your safety, in fear of your life, you should call the police. Because if that behavior that you're being subjected to is a qualifying crime, you might be able to file a U visa, right? And you may be able to get a green card through filing a U visa, which is a visa path that's relegated to victims of crimes, right? Another pathway is the T visa, trafficking. And all of this pathways, it requires the person to get past the fear. So T visa is trafficking, and a lot of people are trafficked. Either they came in through trafficking or they came in on their own here, but at some point they were trafficked. You know, labor trafficking. Somebody offers you a job to come in here, but you come here and the job is not what they promised you. They're paying you little money. They're putting you in unsafe conditions, and they're threatening you with, you know, having you deported if you complain. And a lot of people that fall into this category would be maybe people who come here as nannies, people who work in the construction industry, people who work taking care of older people, or, you know, that kind of, you know, those kind of jobs, you know. Let me think, you know, or, you know, they bring you here, tell you you're going to go to school, and instead, you know, you become like, you know, a servant, you know, cooking, cleaning. Basically, they force you to do this, you know, to be a slave to the family. So now I've done many consultations on people who would qualify to get a green card through trafficking, because it's labor trafficking, but they're afraid. They are afraid to make that move, you know. And so I want to tell you today, yes, it's scary, but if you want to get to where you want to get to, you have to do it anyway. You can be scared, but do it anyway. And the first step is to reach out to an experienced attorney to see what you qualify for. So I've told you, we talked about 3 visa types right now. There's the U visa for people who are either victims of qualifying crimes or they're witnesses to a crime that has happened. In both instances, you've provided assistance to the police, right? And assistance to the police could be as little as just filing a police report and letting them know you're available to, answer questions or assist them if they need further assistance, all right? And then there's VAWA, where if you're married to a U.S. citizen or you have an immediate relative who is a U.S. citizen and you're being abused. Now, VAWA also applies to green card holders. I forgot to add that. If you're married to a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, or you are the child of a U.S. citizen or green card holder, or you are the parent of a U.S. citizen only, and you're being subjected to various types of abuse. It doesn't have to be just physical abuse. It can be emotional abuse. It can be psychological abuse. It can be financial abuse, verbal abuse, all of that, right? You can self-petition. In these 3 visa types I discussed, U visa, VAWA, the T visa, you don't need anybody to assist you. You can do it on your own. I saw a question that just came in, which is a really good question, so I'm going to respond to it. Sasha Gudza Perry says, VAWA getting the 5-year work permit as well. Let me answer that. So there's a new law that, a new Biden-Harris policy that came in. USCIS is going to extend the validity period of work visas from 2 years to 5 years. And so it applies to people who are applying for a work permit as a first application, or as or when they're just renewing the application, they get 5 years, but not all visa types. It's people who are refugees, people who are applying for asylum, cancellation of removal, withholding of removal, and adjustment of status. So to answer your question, Sash Gudaz Perry, it would apply if you filed for VAWA and filed for adjustment of status with your VAWA. So it's for adjustment of status. So if you filed for VAWA and you filed adjustment of status, and as part of the adjustment of status, you filed for work permit under the C9 category. If you do, yes, when you apply, you get a 5-year work permit. And if you renew, you get a 5-year work permit. That is the best news I've heard one of the best news I've heard this week, because I think USCIS has figured out that the constant renewal, because every time you renew your work permit, USCIS has to, put the paper through, even though a lot of time they're not even getting any money for it, because when you file an adjustment of status and the case is pending, you don't have to give them another filing fee. So it's basically making them, they're doing all these renewals and they're so backlogged. And so I guess they figure that if we gave a longer validity period for the work permit, then all that time being devoted to renewals will allow them to focus on their backlog. But the thing you have to understand is this. Remember, it's only work permits that have the 5-year validity period. Advanced parole has not been extended, and I don't know why. I mean, it's the same concept of having to renew this unnecessary paperwork should apply to the advanced parole. Give it 5 years as well, so that we can actually see progress on the cases that we're filing. So that's pretty much all I have for today. Let me see if I have any questions. I don't see any questions on Facebook or YouTube. So let's see what my Instagram family have. So Jesu Lolua says, if applications get denied because of the divorce paper was not done in America and the divorce paper is done now, can you reapply for a new application with the old wedding certificate? So Jesu Lolua, that is a really great question, but I want to correct you. Applications are not getting denied because divorce papers were not done in America. Applications are getting denied because the divorce papers that were not done in America have been found by USCIS to be fake or fraudulent. So if USCIS feels that the divorce abroad is a true divorce, or if in certain countries, like in Nigeria, if you have a customary divorce, you're not required to have a divorce decree based on the type of divorce it was, based on the type of marriage it was. So there's no need for you to have a divorce decree. USS will accept that if there's no divorce decree, if it was a customary marriage, right? However, if you had a registry marriage and you produce a divorce and they find it to be fake, then we always recommend that you file another divorce here in America, just because you don't want it to be. I think USCIS really has, they really have trust issues with a lot of divorce decrees from certain countries. They have trust issues with a lot of documents from certain countries. So it's easier for you if you file the divorce from America, because they don't question their legal documents. Okay. Now, the second question you asked was, can you reapply for new applications with the old wedding certificate? So this is a question that is specific to jurisdiction. In New Jersey and New York and most of the United States, they will not accept an old wedding certificate. You have to actually get married again with a new certificate. So now, in some states, I think Texas is one, they have a really curious law where you don't have to remarry, as long as if it's the same person. Once the divorce goes through, once the new divorce goes through, the proper divorce, the person you were married to, I think there's a way it works where the marriage becomes effective on that day of the divorce, something to that effect. So, but I would advise you to always talk to a lawyer before you do anything, because there are exceptions to every rule. So even as I'm telling you this, there are probably different states that have different exceptions, and the exceptions would depend on that person's situation. So like I said, this is for informational purposes. I'm not giving you anybody legal advice here. So on YouTube, Tochukwu Orizo says, if you caught your spouse gave you STD, and after treatment, you still need a waiver to be able to get a green card. So Tochukwu, I need to know more about your case. Just because your spouse gave you STD does not relieve you of the need for a waiver, unless, because what are you waiving? You know, we need to know what you're waiving to figure out whether you need a waiver or you don't need a waiver. So your question is really vague, and it might be helpful if you talk to an attorney so that they can advise you properly. All right. All right, NM, good evening. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to sign off soon because I have a 3 o'clock. Nilechi says, what's the longest VAWA case you've had, attorney? My friend's application has been 31 months. Excuse me, she got her prima facie and EAD. Please advise. She's worried alongside praying. Well, it's hard to figure out. I think we've had VAWA cases maybe about 24 months, 26, 28. You know, at the same time, we've had VAWA cases 5 months. So I would tell your friend not to worry because of the length of time. But what I would advise her to do is to check the processing guidelines. And if her case is past processing times, she needs to start off with an e-inquiry. And ultimately, if she wants an answer to her petition, she really has to file a writ of mandamus, which is a lawsuit against the government, telling them to explain why this case is taking so long. And that always works. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work and give you the response you want, but you will get a response. All right. Let's see. I think one more, and then I have to go. Kester says, I need advice, please. My kids were DQ'd in June 2021 on F2A. However, they were upgraded to IR2 last week, September 23rd. Any idea, estimate when they can expect interviews from Lagos Embassy? No, sorry, I have no idea. I have no estimate. If I did, I'd be in a different, I'd be like, what do they call it? somebody who sees the future. Pretty Diva says, if your name is not added to any of the bills in the house and mortgage in filing a marriage-based green card, will that be a problem? Not necessarily, Pretty Diva. There's different ways to show that. There are different ways to show that your marriage is a bona fide marriage, right? But USS likes financial commingling, right? But if all the other stuff you have is really, really, really solid, right? The fact that the bills are not in your name and the mortgage is not in your name is something that is easily explainable. Maybe it was the person's house before you guys got married. But if you have other good, solid evidence, you should be able to, scale through. So the requirements for bills in the house and all that, those are just, suggestions. But they're really good evidence. There's other great evidence. So I would advise you, if you're worried, to call an attorney and see if they can assist you. You can call us 973-993-1900. So, okay, guys, I got to run because I have a consultation in exactly 3 minutes. But it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. And again, keep hope alive, okay? Take it easy. Bye.